Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today we're doing our first leveling guide, which will be of the Acolyte. We'll be running it as a solo character so that we're not going to be using any Twinks gear that we have on our softcore account, and we're going to be leveling this to where we can show you the first skills that you should use, how you should level them up, and how to make it extremely easy on yourself to where you can run around and kill everything extremely fast, extremely easy, dying as few times as possible, and allowing you to progress through the campaign as quickly as possible. Now, this build guide is only going to go through character creation to the beating of Lagon. We're not going to go into the monolith, we might do that in a future patch, but this will get you all the way to the end game systems. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, right off the bat, the first skill that you're going to be able to use is Rip Blood, which is really nice. You can just run up to mobs, cast Rip Blood. Not only is it going to damage them, but it'll also bring you some health back. Now, as soon as you hit level 2, you get Summon Skeletons. As soon as you get this, you want to summon 3 of them. That's the limit that you can have at this point. And right off the bat, you want to summon those, as those are going to help kill things and do decent damage along with you casting Rip Blood. Once you hit level 3, Marrow Shards will take your third slot, the E slot. Now once this happens, Marrow Shards is not a skill that we will be using very much. However, in the first few levels, if you do get a group of mobs together, it is nice just to send Marrow Shards, as it can attack and pierce through all of those and do damage to all mobs in a line. So I would use it a couple of times, maybe until you get your next few skills, but it's not going to be one of our main skills. Alright, now you've hit level 4, and this is where the fun begins. When you hit level 4, you unlock the skill Wandering Spirits. This is going to be the first skill that we specialize. Also, when you hit level 4, you open up your first specialization slot. You're going to put Wandering Spirits in here, and you're going to have 1 point. The first point that you have, you want to put in Souls of Rage. We will also put the second point here, and our third point will go into Spectral Putrescence, which is going to allow all of our wandering spirits to attack from range and do poison. And what this is going to allow is we can just auto cast the skill. It's an instant cast, which means we're never going to have to stop. We're going to have the spirits always around us, and they're going to be attacking from range, which means all we have to do at this point is run around and let them kill everything for us. For speed running, this is extremely nice. However, just in normal battling, it's also nice, as they'll help kill things extremely quickly, along with the 3 skeletons that you have summoned, and using Rip Blood in order to restore your life and just do a little extra damage. Alright, I just hit level 5, and now there's a few more things to go over. For starters, we have one more level on our Wandering Spirits, which means we can now put the second point in Souls of Rage. For items, what you're going to start wanting to look for is things with dodge and health. That's really all that you need to get through the entire campaign. If you can get enough dodge and enough health, with those two things in this build, you're just going to be dodging a lot of things. You're not in melee range. You're going to be able to just dodge and either take the hit and recover from it using Rip Blood or another skill, and just allow your Wandering Spirits and your summons to kill everything for you. So if you find anything with dodge rating, feel free to throw that on. The weapon that you're really going to want to go with doesn't super matter. However, I would stick to wands and scepters, and you can either do minion damage. However, remember that the Wandering Spirits get your damage. So if you get damage over time, poison chance, poison damage, all of those things are going to increase the amount of damage that the Wandering Spirits are going to do, and you won't have to do as much. For your passives, the place that I like to put the first 8 points is going to be into Blood Aura, as this increased damage is not only going to be increased damage for you, but your Wandering Spirits are going to do more damage, and your minions are going to do more damage. So everything's going to do more damage, and it's going to allow you to kill things much faster. We're going to try and get to 15 points, and Spirit Plague is going to be the first skill that we really want out of the passive tree. And then for our character sheet, you can see that just with a little bit of dodge, you're already sitting at a pretty high dodge chance. And with that, we're not going to be too worried about protections through this. However, if you do find void or protections, feel free to throw those on as well. But remember, dodge and health are going to be the 2 things that you want to go for. Alright, sometime between level 6 and 7, you're going to level up Wandering Spirits to level 3 and put that third point into Spectral Putrescence, which is going to allow the Wandering Spirits to shoot from range. As you can see, they now shoot what looks like a poison dart towards enemies, and this is going to help kill things as you just run by, or as you sit there and kill them as well. Now, they don't do a lot of damage right off the bat, but you have to remember you're going to have lots of spirits, and the more of them attacking a single target, the more damage that they're going to do. Alright, we are now fighting the first rare that we come up against that's kind of a boss, and as you can see, the single target damage of Wandering Spirits really helps for you to kill everything extremely quickly. Alright, once you've reached the council chambers, you've probably saved up a little bit of gold. For us, we have 330. Now, if you go to the gambler, this is a perfect time to take advantage of some of the things that he can give you that you haven't found already. For instance, we still have completely empty slots, so here I would definitely want to get a pair of gloves, a relic, and a ring, and possibly a shield or a catalyst, depending on what you want to go for. So I'm going to go ahead and get a pair of gloves. I'm going to get a relic, and I'm really going to hope that they give me something decent. If you want, the silver ring can give you more move speed. The jade ring will give you more dodge. This is extremely useful early game, so I usually always try to get the jade rings. As you can see, we didn't really get anything useful except for minion damage. However, we do have the passive 14 dodge, which helps. We got a bunch of void protection on our relic. That's great. We got a common gloves, and we have enough gold to try for another pair of gloves, and we can also go ahead and throw on a shield, or you can throw on a tattered squirrel. That's what I'll be going for, as the int is very helpful for our build. Look at that, our second pair of gloves came with some dodge, and our tattered squirrel gave us some damage over time and poison protection, both useful things. We have just enough money at this point that we could do a chest, a belt, or a pair of boots. For me, I want boots, as the increased move speed is always helpful early game so that you can dodge things. And look at that, we got some elemental protection, and we are out of gold. Now it's time to continue on the story, although you're set and you shouldn't struggle from this point for a little while. Alright, you've reached your first boss, the Idol of Loathing, and just look at how fast his health goes down. Now remember, this is in solo mode, we have no tweaked down gear. This is just because of the skill setup that you have. Your wandering spirits and your skeletons are just absolutely annihilating him. And look at that, we reached level 9. Level 9 is good for a few reasons. To begin with, let's put our final points into Wandering Spirits. Now that we have another fourth point, the next thing that you're going to want to put into is the Lingering Souls. This will increase the mana cost, but we're not worried about that as it's our only mana spender. But the Spirit Duration is what's going to be really nice. They will now last longer, which is going to allow you to stack more of them. We're going to put our next 4 points into this. We now have opened up a second skill slot, which we are going to use for Bone Curse. Bone Curse is going to be extremely effective, and what we're going to do with this is our first 5 points, we're going to put 3 points in Conflation, 1 point in Bone Prison, this is what you want, and 1 point in Shattered Prison to make it only a 6-second cooldown. This Bone Prison is going to take the aggro of all of the mobs so that you don't have to worry about them coming after you, and once you get the 6-second cooldown, you'll be able to have 100% uptime of it. Between this and the Wandering Spirits killing everything, all you get to do is wander around yourself and not worry about things really chasing you. These two skills together is going to make it so you have high survivability and you're doing high damage. Now, also don't forget you still have more passives, so continue putting it in until you max out that blood aura. Now we have more points. Our next section that we want to put into is the Forbidden Knowledge. This node gives us plus intelligence and necrotic protection. I'm going to put 2 points into this, and then after that I'll be focused on Blood Pact for the increased damage. Alright, we just hit level 13 and some good stuff happens at this level. First off, you just now unlocked Transplant, and we're not going to spec into it. However, I am going to make it my right click button, or in my case I have designated it as the letter T, or right click, but Transplant is now going to be your movement skill. It does take a portion of your life, it will consume it when you do Transplant, so you do have to be a little bit careful for it, but if you get trapped, it's going to be one of those nice skills. Also, if you're trying to speedrun, you can now just keep teleporting or transplanting ahead, which is going to allow you to move much faster through the maps. An update to our skills at this point, we have one more point for Wandering Spirits, which we're going to put into Lingering Souls. Once we do put the 4 points in here, we're going to move over to Thin Veil so that we reveal more of them quicker, and we're going to put our next 5 points into that. For Bone Curse, we have 3 more points. We put 2 more into Conflation and 1 into the actual Bone Prison. Now it is going to have a 20-second cooldown until we get 1 more point for Shattered Prison, but now you can create this nice wall that's going to attract all of the minions and take the aggro away. And if you need it, you can also blockade by using the wall barrier. You can use it to block pathways and do other things. So if you have a whole train behind you, you can just spam it, block their path, and then keep running so that they'll lose their aggro towards you. And this is what it'll look like. Once we take the next point, it will put gaps in it so you can actually, run through. You won't be stuck inside. And once you're inside, it actually doesn't let you transplant outside, so be careful with it. You don't really want to be inside, as it'll make you a target if there's any AoE and you can't escape from it. Alright, we've beaten the next boss, we've continued, we are now back in the council chambers, we're collecting all of our quests, and the nice thing is we now have enough passive points, a full 15 of them, so that we can unlock Spirit Plague, which is going to be your third specialized skill when you hit level 19, but it's also going to be your main damage dealer at this point. I change it out for Rip Blood, and I'll put it as my skill tree, and what's nice about this is it benefits from damage over time. It doesn't do a hit, it just curses, but cursed enemies tend to... It benefits from damage over time, which is nice because your Wandering Spirits will also benefit from damage over time, so that's going to be one thing that you want to look for if you can find any. You won't need it, but having it just makes you do a little bit more damage. On top of that, the nice thing is the skill will spread, and once we specialize into it, you can actually get more damage over time per enemy that has been inflicted by Spirit Plague, which is really nice because it also self-inflicts in an area. So it's going to allow you to stack a lot of damage over time, and against bosses, if you bring in a mob with you and you get like 10 of these enemies afflicted with it, you'll have such a high amount of damage over time that you can kill bosses in just a few seconds. Alright, let's go ahead. Now looking at our skills, we have one more point for Wandering Spirits, which we're going to put into Lingering Souls. And then for our items, we did find one nice item. We found a Cobalt Scepter that has minion physical damage and minion damage. It's not useful for us, but we are still rocking the 3 skeletons, so we're going to go ahead and throw that on. It has more adaptive spell damage than our Acolyte's Scepter, our starting Scepter has, so it's going to be a little useful for any spell damage that you do and also melee physical damage that you do, which you're not going to be doing any, but your Spirit Plague is a spell, so it'll benefit a little bit from it. We also unlocked the idols. You'll get 2 idol drops to begin with. In our case, we got 5% increased health and elemental protection, or we got damage leeches health on hit. Now, Spirit Plague doesn't do hit damage, so the one that we got with increased health is going to be the more beneficial one, along with that elemental protection. So we're going to go ahead and throw that on. The next thing we're going to do is, at the Gambler, we still need a belt, and at this point, a sash is basically the only belt that you can get, even though we're level 15. There's a couple of others that'll be unlocked here soon, or if not already, if we refresh. But what we want to spend all of our money on is trying to get a Viper Tail. A Viper Tail is going to be useful because it gives poison chance and slow chance, and your Wandering Spirits will get that as well. So we're going to go ahead and attempt to get it, although we don't have a lot of gold, so the chances of us actually getting it are pretty low, but you never know. The worst case scenario, we'll still get a decent item that we'll be able to put on and use instead of our common sash that we're currently wearing. So we didn't get one, which is unfortunate. We did get a set one, but we're not going to use that as it doesn't really do much for us in our current build. What we're looking for is anything with a lot of dodge. So this has armor, dodge, and minion damage. Nope. So the current one that we like is the increased armor, the elemental protection, and the dodge rating. I'm going to go ahead and throw that bad boy on, and we're going to go ahead and continue our journey. Feel free to sell the rest of those items and keep attempting at getting a Viper Tail. A Viper Tail is a very useful belt, as it's not going to take away from many other affixes that you need, but it is going to give you a lot more damage to clear maps out much quicker. Alright, we just hit level 19, and the good thing about level 19 is you now get a third specialization slot in your skill bar. For this, we're going to select our third skill as Spirit Plague, and if you thought your DPS was good so far, because we're already one-shotting mobs with Spirit Plague and our Wandering Spirits are already killing things extremely quickly, it's going to speed up tremendously because we can now put our first 5 points in Pestilence, and what this does is gives us global damage over time. We get 15% for every enemy that we've afflicted with Spirit Plague in the last 4 seconds. Once we get 5 points in here, this will be 75%. This buff does stack, obviously, since it's per enemy, and if you do 10 enemies with 5 points in here, you have 750% increased damage over time, which is just astronomical with the amount of damage. You're just going to be watching all of the mobs on the screen melt as you just continue to go through the screens and put Spirit Plague onto all of the mobs. For our other skills, we have 3 more points to put into Bone Curse. We're going to put the 1 point in Shattered Prison so that we have our cooldown reduced to 6 seconds, and then the other 2 points you can either make Bone Curse do more points and start working towards having Bone Curse applied on hit, which Spirit Plague won't apply it on hit, so it's not really a big deal, and I'm not too worried about that. I'm more of a fan of going slow, so I'm going to put my next 2 points in slow, which will slow the enemies down that get hit by Bone Curse, so I don't have to worry about them chasing me too much. We also have 2 more points for Wandering Spirits. We are maxing out the 4th point in Lingering Souls and moving on to starting to put our points in Thin Veil. This will be where the next 5 points go. For our passives, we now have 9 passives that we haven't used. Going to put 3 more points in Blood Pact to max it out and 5 points in Crimson Gluttony so that we have that reduced health drain effect. We're going to have 1 point left. We're going to start saving when we unlock the Lich or the Necromancer. We can start putting points into that. We're almost to the end of time, and then we'll be able to do that, and we'll get into details for that. Also, for items, you've probably found some new items at this point. We were really lucky, and we had the Viper Tail actually drop for us. I'm going to show a clip of that real quick. And as you can see, the Viper Tail gives us poison on hit, slow on hit, dodge rating, and melee attack speed. We don't really need the melee attack speed, but what's nice about this is our Wandering Spirits are now doing extra poison damage, and we ourselves have a huge amount of dodge increase. We're still wearing a common chest, so that's the next item that we're going to be looking for. We have a little bit of gold. When we get to the end of time, we'll do some gambling to get a new one. Alright, we are now at the end of time, and we get to choose our mastery. We're going to choose the Lich for this video and this character. However, it doesn't matter whether you go Lich or if you go Necro. We're not using any class specific skills, so you can still do everything that we're doing in this video with either one that you choose. However, placing the passive points could be a little different, but we're not going above the halfway, so it really doesn't matter, and you can always respec later when you get to endgame. For our skills, we've got a few more points, so we maxed out the 5 points in Pestilence. The next 6 points that you're going to get, you're going to work towards getting the 3 stacks of Bleed, and you want the 2 stacks of Poison. So I'm going to go ahead and put 1 point in Infectious Application to unlock the Toxic Transmission, and I'm going to get the 2 stacks of Poison first, and then I'm going to go for the 3 stacks of Bleed and the Hemorrhage node so that we can do 3 stacks of bleed and 2 stacks of poison per hit, and that will stack really well with the damage over time that your Wandering Spirits are doing. For Bone Curse, we have 2 more points. I'm going to go ahead and max out the slow, and then for Wandering Spirits we have 1 more point, which we're going to put in Thin Veil. For our passives, we have 5 passives, and we're going to put them all into the Lich. All 5 points are going to go into Survival of the Cruel. We're going to put the full 8 points in there. We want that 4% health leech or spell leech, because Spirit Plague, which doesn't do a hit, is a spell and will allow you to leech the damage it does. So since it's doing good damage and it's a spell, you're going to leech a portion of that, and because a lot of the other nodes that you take are going to decrease your health regen or consume a portion of your health per second, that's going to be really nice to battle that with a bunch of leech. So we're going to go ahead and put 8 points in there first, then we'll put 8 points in Crippling Insight, and then we'll work towards the damage over time effects. Alright, we just hit level 30. For skills, we have 4 more points to put into Spirit Plague. We're putting 2 points into the Poison, and then we're going to put 2 points into Hemorrhage for that bleed stacks. For Bone Curse, we have 2 more points. We're going to put that into the increased damage, and then for Wandering Spirits, 2 more points will go into Thin Veil. Now once you max that out for 5 for 5, the next 3 points after that are all going to go into Spirit Swarm to increase the cooldown recovery, which means that you'll be able to cast it sooner because you'll have less of a cooldown on it, which is going to mean even more of them. And then the final 3 points after that is going to go into the frequency of them casting the poison. And then for passives, we have 9 more passive points. We're going to put the last 3 into Survival of the Cruel. After that, we're going to put 6 into Crippling Insight to increase our damage a bit. And we shall continue. Alright, we are now level 34, which means we have unlocked our 4th specialization slot, and for that skill, we're going to use Drain Life. Now, the reason we're going with Drain Life is it benefits from damage over time. On top of that, it's huge survivability because it's going to allow you to drain life, which means you can refill your life immediately when using it, especially even against single targets. Now, because it stacks with damage over time, that means all the damage over time stacks, and increases you're going to get from Spirit Plague, which are global, will mean that after you've cast Spirit Plague on an enemy, especially if you're in single target like a boss, you cast Spirit Plague a few times, then you drain life it, and it's just going to do massive amounts of damage, even if you don't spec into it, so you can simply choose another skill. I do recommend, however, putting this one on it, as it's going to speed things up against bosses really quick. Now, our first point that we're going to put into it is going to be increased damage. We will eventually do more increased health leech, and then you can do damned or any sort of other thing that you want to do for more damage. For Spirit Plague, our next 2 points will be the last point in Hemorrhage, and then we're going to go into the extra chance you get for hitting an enemy already afflicted. For Bone Curse, we have 1 more point, which we're going to put into more damage, and Wandering Spirits again with 1 more point to finish off Thin Veil. For passives, we have 6 more passives. We're going to put the last 2 in Crippling Insight, and then we're going to go into the Poison Damage and Poison Duration, as this is a big portion of what we do. We're going to max that out with 8 points as we get them. We are now level 39. We are at the top of the Immortal Summit, about to take on the bosses, so here's our update. At level 39, we have 400 health. We still haven't changed any gear. Our gear is the same that we've been using since about level 15, ever since we found the Viper Tail. So nothing here has changed. We're still wearing complete crap gear. We've died 1 time. For our skills, for our Drain Life, we're going to put 3 points into the channel cost. We're going to do 4 points into Condemnation so that we really have a lot more damage against single target, and the 3 points in Unholy Mass so that we have more damage per stack of Damned. And since you're putting 4 stacks on per second, it won't take you very long to get that 21 stacks to max out the damage with 63% more damage. Now we'll continue with more points. We're going to put into Word of Conviction for increased duration. You can increase the number of spirits since we are using them, which is really nice. It means you can have up to 15 more of them while you're channeling. So if you channel for a long time, say during a boss fight, you can get a lot more eternal spirits, which is really going to help. That's what we're going to try and do before we get to Lagon. And then for Spirit Plague, 2 more points into the chance to bleed against already afflicted enemies. And Bone Curse, we're going to put 2 more points into more damage. And then for the Wandering Spirits, 2 points into Spirit Swarm. For passives, we have 8 more points. We're going to max out the last 4 points in Lasting Stench. And then you can do the damage over time with Desolation. Alright, we are now level 45. We have began our Chapter 8 Descent. We are in the Deep Harbor. Our skills, we have 3 more points for Drain Life, which we're going to put 2 into Duration and 1 into an additional 5 spirits while channeling. For Spirit Plague, we're putting 1 more point into Laceration. Bone Curse has 2 more points, which we're going to put into the Brittle Bones for the kill threshold. And for the Wandering Spirits, 1 last point to finish off Spirit Swarm and 1 point in Soul of Filth. For passives, we have an additional 7 points, which we're putting 4 into Desolation, Unclosing Wounds. And our journey continues. Now level 49, we're about to go into the Lagon boss fight, and these are our stats. For our skills, nothing's really changed. We put 1 more point into Eternal Servitude and 1 more point into Word of Conviction. We did unlock the 5th skill slot. At this point, you don't really have any time to level it, but you can put in anything you want. For me, I would be putting in Transplant. and doing 3 Rip Bloods right off the bat. For Spirit Plague, we maxed out the Laceration. For Bone Curse, we have the maxed out Brittle Bones for the kill threshold. And for Wandering Spirits, we just put another point in Soul of Filth. For passives, we're just going to put another 4 points into Unclosing Wounds. One thing I did forget to mention is the gear that we're using before going into this fight. It's all basically the same as we've been using since the beginning. We still only have the 2 idols that give increased health, some health on hit, and then we have our Jade Ring that has some damage over time, int, poison, and dodge. We have the Viper Tail. The other unique is Strong Mind that we had dropped for us. Another Jade Ring which doesn't help us at all. We have an Ancient Tome on with some Void Protection, Fire Protection. Again, this one doesn't really help us at all either. We have a pair of boots with some dodge and some health. Gloves with cast speed and dodge rating. A chest piece with increased health, armor, and fight. We have an Ashken Skull in our offhand with some added mana, increased minion damage, spell damage, necrotic damage. Other than minion damage, this one's decent. And then a helm with some vitality, int, and mana with void protection. And again, these are our stats going into the fight. At this point, we've already beaten it. And now I'm going to play the fight for you. And that concludes the leveling guide for you guys. This is the fastest way that I have found to level up the Acolyte into either the Necro or into the Lich, it doesn't matter which. At this point, you can continue on into the Monolith of Fate, you can start building into a different build if there's another guide somewhere that you found that you liked. We didn't craft on any of the gear, so this is very solo friendly. You can of course increase your defenses by crafting and actually spending your time and putting gear together. However, we just ran through the map basically as quickly as possible. and it was pretty fast. You kill things extremely quickly. It all comes down to the skills and the way they're spec'd, especially once you get that Spirit Bling and Drain Life. You're just constantly refilling your health on top of doing a massive amount of damage over time. We did die a handful of times. It wasn't too many, but overall your tankiness of course will go up if you do actually craft or actually spend time looking for better items. We didn't spend too much time on this. And that concludes the leveling guide. Thanks for watching.